Okay, so have you ever looked at your big career plan, all ambitious and mapped out, and then realized you need this whole other equally meticulous plan just to handle the stress and, keep your energy up?
Hmm.
We're talking about that balancing act, right? Between the really intense professional drive and the absolutely necessary non-negotiable self-care.
Yeah, that constant juggle.
Exactly. If that sounds like your daily struggle, wanting to conquer the world, but also needing to keep your brain from short-circuiting, then this deep dive is definitely for you.
That's a common challenge, especially today.
It really is. So we've gathered this really fascinating set of sources today. It paints this incredibly detailed picture of someone navigating exactly that space. We're looking at a recent graduate who is, well, basically optimizing their life like a high-performance machine. I mean, right down to their coffee choices, decaf only, and specific teas for detoxing.
It's quite granular level of detail.
It is. And our mission today is to unpack these personal systems. We're talking work goals, customized rest routines, really unique learning preferences, even their philosophy on time management, and distill some strategies from it all. Strategies for managing energy, managing information flow, and basically maintaining peak output mentally and physically in what's often a pretty demanding world.
And what jumps out immediately, I think, is this powerful duality you see.
Duality, how so?
Well, on one hand, you've got this intense outward-facing ambition. They're targeting the Mumbai startup scene, which is notoriously competitive, and they're already thinking long-term about philanthropy, specifically in education, possibly living between different places in India. So big goals.
Okay, yeah. Very outward focus.
But then anchored to that ambition is this really rigorous, almost clinical self-awareness. They're hyper-attuned to their own physical limits. They mentioned, for instance, being caffeine sensitive, knowing it triggers jittery episodes.
Oh.
And they use specific routines, like cold plunging, explicitly stating it helps manage anxiety. It's not just about fitness. It's targeted mental health management.
Wow. So it's like they're building this internal scaffolding to support the external ambition.
Precisely. This profile, it offers a kind of masterclass, really.
Yeah.
A blueprint for strategic life architecture, especially for, the ambitious learner who wants to achieve big things without completely burning out.
It's more than just a list of habits, isn't it? It feels like a formalized energy management system.
That's a great way to put it. It's a system.
Hmm.
So our analysis today will trace this journey. We'll start with their career ambitions, both the immediate stuff and the long-term vision. That itself reveals a lot about modern kind of multi-stage career paths.
Okay.
Then we'll dive deep into the self-care techniques, the really customized ones, how they actively manage their cognitive load, their physical state.
The nuts and bolts of staying afloat.
Exactly. Then we'll shift gears a bit, look at how they consume knowledge, how their approach has evolved from, say, childhood reading to using things like virtual reality now.
Interesting.
And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at their philosophy on time, punctuality, stress, and maybe most importantly, the role of community, their village, when things get overwhelming.
Sounds like a comprehensive look. Let's dive in. Okay, let's unpack this career landscape first.
Yeah.
As you said, they're a recent graduate, currently in between things, which I think a lot of people can relate to, actively looking for that next step.
Right. But that in-between phase isn't aimless. There's a very clear, immediate goal.
Which is?
Integration into the startup industry. And specifically, with a strong geographical preference for Mumbai.
Mumbai. Okay, that's significant, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
not exactly a laid-back choice.
Not at all. Mumbai is, well, it's often called the financial and corporate hub of India. It's synonymous with high energy, intense growth, often long hours, constant innovation. Choosing to pursue a startup role there immediately signals a desire for, rapid immersion, fast learning, really accelerating their professional skills.
So they're deliberately stepping into the pressure cooker, so to speak.
It seems that way. It sets a very high bar for the present.
But what I found really fascinating, as you mentioned earlier, is that the long-term goal isn't just, say, CEO of that startup. It's completely different. It's this deep commitment to philanthropy.
Yes, specifically focused on education. And notice the lifestyle model attached to that vision.
Right. They imagine doing this while living in between different places in India. That's a very different picture from a Mumbai high-rise office.
It absolutely is. And this introduces a really critical point for any modern learner thinking about their career trajectory. The goal isn't necessarily a single linear ladder anymore. It's often a sequence of interconnected phases. The intense startup phase here, it likely serves as the foundation.
How so? building capital.
Exactly. Building capital, building a network, honing high-level management and strategic skills.
Hmm.
All things you learn quickly in that intense environment. And those resources, financial, intellectual, network, are what could eventually fund and enable the more flexible, value-driven philanthropic mission later on.
Ah, okay. So the current high-stress phase isn't the end point. It's a deliberate stepping stone. It's like phase one of a bigger plan.
Precisely. And reframing it that way can make the inevitable stress of phase one more manageable
Hmm.
psychologically. It serves a defined long-term purpose beyond just the immediate job title.
That makes sense. But I wonder, how realistic is that pivot? Going from the sheer intensity of a Mumbai startup to a sort of location-independent philanthropic role, that sounds like a huge shift.
It is a huge shift, and that's the core challenge.
Yeah.
It's why the self-awareness and the self-care strategies we'll discuss are so absolutely crucial. That transition requires advanced skills. You need skills in, potentially, scaling things down, achieving financial independence, adapting high-level business strategy learned in the for-profit world to the nonprofit sector.
It's not just about wanting to do good, it requires a whole new skill set.
Absolutely.
Ah.
It really embodies that idea of a career in between things,
Hmm.
where success isn't just about climbing, but about how effectively you leverage one phase to launch the next. It demands a deep comfort with fluidity, constant redefinition, really.
It's interesting because that comfort with fluidity, or maybe the journey towards it, seems mirrored in their childhood. You mentioned this earlier, and I agree. It's probably the most relatable anecdote in the sources.
It really is. It offers a great lesson for anyone, especially early in their career, who feels pulled in a million directions or doubts their path because interests keep shifting.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, they talk quite candidly about how their aspirations were just constantly changing as a kid, often dictated by whatever media they were consuming at the time. They mention not being able to choose one thing because, quote, every day was something different.
I think many of us have been there.
Absolutely. It's almost the psychological reality of growing up now, isn't it? In this information-rich world where every movie, every show, every book potentially presents a new, compelling life blueprint.
Right. And they gave specific examples, like watching a show like Suits, the legal drama,
Mm-hmm.
and suddenly being completely convinced they were destined to be a lawyer. Power suits, sharp arguments, the whole deal.
Yep. Locked in.
But then maybe the next week, they watched The Devil Wears Prada.
Ah, the fashion world.
And boom, the legal dream is out. Now the absolute certainty is wanting to be a fashion designer. The external story completely shapes the internal desire.
And this fluency, or maybe volatility of ambition, is something every learner, every person, really, needs to analyze in themselves.
How so? What's the key takeaway?
The critical thing is learning to distinguish between, let's say, a transient, emotionally engaging interest, one sparked by a cool character or a compelling story, and a deeper, more resonant vocational calling. Something that genuinely aligns with your core skills, your values, what actually energizes you long term.
And it's easy to confuse the two, especially early on.
Very easy. The early years are often about confusing those two. So the fact that this individual now looks back and recognizes that fluctuation openly, that itself suggests a level of self-awareness. It implies they've matured past simply reacting to the latest shiny object, the latest narrative. It allows them to commit more fully to the current startup goal, even while holding that different long-term philanthropic vision. They're starting to define their own path, not just follow scripts.
That's a really important developmental step, isn't it? Moving from externally dictated desires to internally chosen goals.
Hugely important. And it sets the stage perfectly for understanding why they need such a robust self-care strategy.
Okay, so we've established the ambition level is high, the environment they're targeting is demanding, and the long-term vision requires significant groundwork. This really underscores what you said earlier. The need for a rigorous, high-level self-care strategy isn't just nice to have. It sounds absolutely non-negotiable.
Completely. This isn't about, bubble baths and pampering. Those can be nice. This is strategic energy management. It's core to the whole operation.
Right.
If you connect it back to that bigger picture,
Yeah.
the demanding career, the multi-phase plan, it mandates an almost clinical approach to managing your personal energy budget. What drains you? What restores you? And this profile shows someone acutely aware of that, particularly the idea of active rest, recuperation that is genuinely restorative, not just passively zoning out.
And their weekend routine seems to embody that. It's fascinating because it's not rigid, like Saturday is always for X. It's responsive.
Exactly. The structure, they say, depends entirely on how draining the previous week was. They seem to be doing a kind of internal calculation of their energy debt.
Especially, they mention, if the week involved tasks that were particularly draining or things they felt forced to do.
Right. When the week imposes a high cognitive load, maybe due to tasks that don't align with their interests, or just sheer volume of work,
Hmm.
the reset needs to be more intense, more active.
So what does that active reset look like?
Well, that's where specific stress mitigation techniques come in. They prioritize things like cold plunging or using a sauna
Okay, those are becoming more popular, but why those specifically?
because they explicitly link them to making anxiety fade away. It's not just about feeling good physically. It's a targeted tool for managing the mental residue of stress.
So using physiological means to combat psychological stress. That's quite deliberate.
Very deliberate. And exercise fits in here too. It's not just framed as staying healthy. It seems critical for physically processing stress hormones getting out of their head.
Okay, so physical interventions for mental well-being. What else is part of this responsive weekend?
Social connection is key. They make a point of carving out specific time to meet friends and family, recognizing that weekdays often get too busy and those connections can fray. It's maintenance.
Right, replenishing the social battery too.
Right.
Exactly. But here's the really interesting nuance. Rest doesn't mean collapse into total inactivity. What do you mean?
They explicitly state they don't thrive on lazy weekends.
Really? Most people look forward to being lazy.
Right. But for this person, absolute inactivity apparently leads to falling into a rut. There's this sense that complete passivity makes it harder to get going again.
Ah, the inertia problem.
Precisely. So the balance they're seeking is, in their words, to be lazy enough, but not too lazy.
Okay, that's a tricky line to walk. Lazy enough, but not too lazy.
It is. It implies that recuperation needs to involve restorative activities, not just cessation of activity.
Mm.
So the sauna, the exercise, seeing friends, these aren't just things to do. They are part of actively recharging in a way that doesn't kill momentum for the week ahead.
That really reframes the whole idea of productivity, doesn't it? It suggests that taking time for these active rest activities, social connection, physical recovery, might actually be the most productive thing you can do for sustained output.
Absolutely. It's about managing the whole system, not just the work hours. Productivity includes effective recovery.
Okay, so that's the macro level weekend structure. What about the daily maintenance, the little things? You mentioned their diet is highly customized.
Yes, let's shift from the weekly rhythm to the daily, almost micro-level mechanisms. Their approach to hydration and stimulants is incredibly revealing. It shows deep self-knowledge, which again is essential for high performance. Starting with the basics, water. Water is fundamental. They drink it daily, noting that the negative effects, difficulty concentrating, general drain, are felt almost immediately when they forget.
We've all been there. The 3 p.m. slump hits hard when you're dehydrated.
Exactly. And interestingly, the only challenge they mention is simply forgetting sometimes, in the hurry of everything. It's a reminder that even the most self-aware, optimized person can stumble over basic logistics.
It's human. But where it gets really strategic, you said, is with caffeine.
Yes, this is a critical piece of their energy management. They identify as definitively caffeine sensitive.
How did they figure that out?
Apparently, through direct experience, having very, jittery episodes after consuming it.
Ah, okay. Not pleasant.
Not pleasant, and certainly not conducive to the focused, stable cognitive function needed in a demanding startup environment, or really any high-stakes role.
Yeah.
Managing your neurochemistry becomes paramount.
So what's the strategy? Avoid it entirely.
Essentially, yes, or manage it very carefully. If coffee is consumed, it must be decaf. This isn't just a casual preference. It sounds like a deliberate biohacking choice. They're choosing cognitive preservation over a potential but risky stimulant boost.
They're avoiding the performance-degrading anxiety spikes that caffeine can trigger in sensitive people.
Precisely. It's about setting intentional boundaries around their own physiology. They know what helps them perform sustainably and what leads to a crash, and they've made a conscious choice for stability.
Which leads them towards
Tea. There's a strong preference for tea, partly cultural, partly strategic.
cultural how?
They mention the social context in India, the common question, can I get you some tea? It's embedded in daily life, which naturally reinforces the habit.
Okay, so it's familiar and readily available.
Yes, but they go beyond just casual sipping. They exhibit real mastery over their energy system by using specific teas for specific targeted results.
Like what?
like using chamomile strategically before sleeping to induce calm and improve sleep quality.
Okay, that's fairly common. True. But then also using green tea specifically with the intention to detox. Whether or not it literally detoxes in a medical sense is debatable, but the intention is clear. Using it as part of a cleansing, restorative ritual. So the tea ritual becomes more than just comfort. It's like personalized, gentle pharmacology, optimizing their biology for both rest and readiness.
That's a perfect way to describe it. And the source material adds another layer here, diving into some really unique cultural elements around their comfort drinks.
Oh, yeah. This sounds interesting.
It adds a nice touch of personal history to the optimization strategy. It shows it's not all cold plunges and decaf.
What kind of drinks are we talking about?
Well, masala chai is mentioned as a family staple, which is, of course, a classic cultural energy source and comfort drink across India.
Sure, makes sense. But they also mentioned something quite interesting. Taking regular sodas like cola, but adding masala spices to give it an extra unique kick. Adding spice to soda. Huh, haven't heard of that.
It's apparently a thing. A great example of customizing even common commercial products to create a specific taste and experience. A little personal twist.
Definitely unique. Any others?
Yes.
And this one is quite delightful. A specific family habit of mixing Coca-Cola with a little bit of vanilla ice cream. Like a kook float, but maybe less ice cream.
Exactly. And they note that this particular mix isn't just their family, it's apparently common in different places in India.
Wow. That's fascinating. It grounds all this high-level strategic planning in something very human and specific, doesn't it?
It really does. It shows the intersection of local tradition, family habits, and personal comfort. Whether it's the deep comfort of masala chai or the unique indulgence of a vanilla Coke mix, the underlying theme is integration. Comfort and cultural familiarity aren't sacrificed for performance. They're woven into the energy maintenance strategy. It makes the whole approach feel more holistic, more sustainable, proving that high performance doesn't have to mean sterile optimization. It just requires making choices intentionally.
Okay, so we have this picture of someone managing their energy very intentionally, very strategically, weaving in personal comfort and cultural habits. Now, how does this energy budget, this focus on optimization, influence how they consume information, how they learn?
Right, because learning itself requires energy. This is where it gets really interesting, as you said earlier. Their relationship with reading, in particular, has evolved quite significantly, and it seems to reflect a fundamental shift in the perceived purpose of knowledge for them.
How did it start? What was the genesis?
Interestingly, the journey began with pure aesthetics. They named The Secret Garden as their favorite childhood book.
A classic.
A classic. But the reason it stands out isn't the plot or the characters, primarily. It's because the really nice descriptions about the scenery were the catalyst. That descriptive beauty, the immersive quality of the literary world, that's what initially sparked their love for reading in general.
So it started with getting lost in the language, the atmosphere.
Exactly. Pure literary immersion. But that initial love for that kind of reading didn't necessarily hold up under perhaps the pressures of academic reading or just changing needs.
What do you mean? They now state explicit dislikes.
Specifically, literary works and novels, really. After starting with The Secret Garden. That's quite a shift.
It is. They mentioned that having to read too much literary work, perhaps for school or university, led to a conscious realization, oh, I don't like it.
Ugh, no.
So the appreciation for dense literary prose faded.
It seems so. And this transition, I think, is emblematic of what happens for many ambitious learners today. The primary purpose of reading shifts. It moves away from aesthetic appreciation or long-form narrative consumption towards immediate utility or high digestibility entertainment.
Utility and entertainment. So what do they prefer now?
Yeah.
Their preferred genres now are quite pragmatic. Fiction, yes, but also self-help books. And specifically self-help focused on incorporating habits, especially as they get older.
Ah, okay. So knowledge is a tool for building self-efficacy, optimizing behavior that aligns perfectly with the energy management and self-care system we just discussed.
Exactly. It's all integrated. The information diet supports the life optimization goals.
Do they give any examples of recent reads?
Yes, they mention enjoying Daisy Jones and the Six recently.
Oh, yeah, the book that became a popular TV series. Right. And they recommend it for people into fiction and music. The choice itself is telling. It's fun, contemporary, engaging, and importantly, it exists across multiple platforms, book and series. It suggests a preference for content that's highly digestible, entertaining, and moves quickly.
So the brain seems to be prioritizing knowledge intake that's either immediately actionable, like habit formation from self-help, or purely entertaining and easy to process, like Daisy Jones. It's rejecting the heavier cognitive load of, say, dense literary classics.
That seems to be the pattern.
Uh-huh.
And this pragmatic, efficiency-focused approach extends beyond reading into their broader learning methods. They're embracing modern formats.
Like what?
Well, they cited a recent virtual reality VR experience. They learned about the Titanic.
Learning about the Titanic through VR. Okay, that's different.
And get this, it was on a date night.
A VR date night learning about maritime disasters. That's
Yeah.
certainly an optimized approach to fun.
Isn't it? But the key here is the takeaway from that experience. It wasn't just about the date or the novelty.
What was the insight? The realization was profound for them. I can have fun and learn. The idea that learning and enjoyment aren't mutually exclusive, that they can actually go hand in hand, which maybe traditional education doesn't always emphasize.
Often, it actively separates them,
Yep.
right? Work versus play,
Yes.
study versus fun. But modern, high-engagement methods like VR or well-designed educational games, they merge the two. This leads to better retention, higher motivation, because it doesn't feel like drudgery. For the learner, the message is powerful. Actively seek out these high-engagement formats. Recognize that information absorbed through novel, immersive, or even just fun methods often sticks better.
So expand your definition of learning environment beyond just books and lectures.
Precisely. And this embrace of modern formats and perhaps the influence of modern media consumption shows up directly in their recommended study tactics.
How so?
They explicitly advise studying in shorter chunks.
Okay, breaking it down. Makes sense.
Yes, but they directly link this to the modern attention economy. They see it as a necessary adaptation, heavily influenced by the prevalence of short-form media, TikTok, Reels, quick news hits. Our brains are being rewired, in a way.
So they're acknowledging that fighting for hours of unbroken focus might be counterproductive now.
It seems so. This approach is what some cognitive scientists call micro-chunking. It recognizes the reality of attention decay. Sustained, deep focus for very long periods is becoming harder for many people. So by recommending short, intense bursts of focused work, they're maximizing productivity by working with the brain's current architecture, not against it.
Smart. Just hammering away for hours might lead to diminishing returns.
Exactly. And they pair this micro-chunking with a very practical motivational system,
Which is?
using small breaks and, crucially, micro-rewards. They give the example of having a piece of chocolate after finishing a specific, defined chunk of work.
The immediate gratification loop.
Pretty much. It creates an instant positive feedback loop. Task completed, reward received. It reinforces the productive behavior and makes the overall effort feel more manageable, less daunting.
It's a very pragmatic, almost behavioral psychology-based response to the challenges of studying and information overload today. Less about willpower, more about system design.
Well put. It's about designing a system that makes learning effective and sustainable within the context of modern life and modern attention spans.
Okay, so this person is clearly driven, highly organized, and they're thinking about energy, learning, even their tea choices. Which raises a really important question. What happens when that carefully constructed order inevitably breaks down? When chaos hits?
Yes, the stress test. Because no matter how organized you are, life happens.
Right. And this leads us nicely into that ultimate challenge for the organized learner. How do you manage self-imposed pressure, that organizational anxiety, and deal with the unavoidable last-minute rush? And it's critical to analyze the inherent conflict here. As we've established, this individual identifies as a very, organized person. They value structure, planning. Yet they recount this specific recent event about a month before the source was documented that involved profound last-minute chaos.
What was the situation?
Moving out of a different country.
Okay, that's inherently stressful. Inherently stressful, yes. The task itself was huge. Packing up an entire life, including big stuff like mattresses and couches, into just 2 suitcases to move back home. 2 suitcases for a whole life.
Wow. Okay.
And the reason for the rush, it wasn't an external emergency. It was essentially conscious procrastination rooted in prioritizing enjoyment.
Has it?
They had just returned from a trip to Mexico with their boyfriend, a presumably lovely trip, but it left them with only one single week to organize everything, pack everything, and crucially, get rid of all the large items they couldn't take.
Only a week to liquidate an apartment after a vacation. Oh, dear.
Exactly. And this situation perfectly highlights what you might call the perfectionist's paradox, or the specific pain of organizational anxiety.
What do you mean by that?
For someone who genuinely is organized and values order, Losing control of a timeline, especially due to their own choices, can be deeply anxiety-inducing. The anxiety isn't just from the workload, it's from the failure to adhere to their own internal standards of planning and control.
It's the violation of their own system that causes the distress.
Precisely. They admitted they were packing frantically right up until the very last hour before leaving for the airport. You can almost feel the pain of that self-imposed pressure crashing against the immovable deadline.
So the irony is that the highly organized person might suffer more in these situations, not less, because the deviation from the plan is so jarring.
That's often the case.
Mm-hmm.
The stress of that compressed timeline was clearly immense. But the story doesn't end there. And the resolution offers a critical strategic takeaway that goes way beyond just don't procrastinate on moving.
Okay. What saved the day?
The power of the village.
The village.
Their words. The saving grace, they said, was having a really good group of friends.
Ah, community support.
Yes, but not just passive moral support. This village provided crucial, hands-on, delegated stress relief.
How did they help?
Well, for one, they helped practically with the packing. But they also changed the atmosphere. They were blasting music, turning what could have been a solitary high-stress chore into something more fun, more communal. That provided the necessary momentum to pack when the individual was feeling overwhelmed and probably paralyzed by the sheer scale of the task.
Music and friends, a classic stress buster combo.
Indeed. But the support didn't even stop when the person left for the airport. No. The friends actually returned to the now empty apartment after the individual had departed to handle the final bits, getting rid of leftover items that hadn't been dealt with.
Wow, that's true friendship, going back to clean up afterwards.
Isn't it? And the key phrase they use, it takes a village. It's not just a cliche here. It represents a genuine high-performance strategy.
How is relying on friends a strategy?
For the ambitious learner, for anyone tackling big goals, recognizing when a task exceeds your individual capacity, whether cognitive load, physical load, or emotional load, and then strategically delegating that stress by leaning on your chosen community. That is absolutely essential. It's about resource management, and your friends, your network, are a resource.
So asking for and accepting help isn't weakness. It's smart resource allocation to achieve the main objective, in this case, getting on that plane.
Precisely. Relying on others in these high-pressure moments is arguably the ultimate form of self-care and strategic execution. You protect your primary goal by distributing the load.
That's a powerful reframe. Okay, so moving from that specific crisis to their broader views on time, let's talk punctuality. They have a philosophy on this too.
They do. And interestingly, they admit they've often been a victim to lateness themselves, which perhaps gives their perspective some nuance.
Okay, so what's the core principle?
It's anchored in respect, especially in personal relationships. They argue that if lateness is genuinely avoidable, the best practice is always to arrive on time. Why? To extend respect to your friend. It's a way of showing, I care about your time. Okay, so a baseline ethical standard. Value other people's time as you'd hope they value yours. Makes sense.
Right, a pretty straightforward principle for personal interactions.
But did that translate directly to the workplace? Because the consequences there can be different.
Exactly. They acknowledge the workplace demands a much more complex framework. The judgment or consequence of tardiness, they suggest, should really depend on the context and, importantly, the recurrence.
Okay, so it's not black and white. How do they draw the line? Well, they draw a nuanced line between understanding and reprimand. On the side of acceptance and understanding, they propose that if someone is consistently late due to a genuinely unavoidable recurring situation, the example given is a parent needing to care for a child, then the company should be more accepting, more understanding.
So acknowledging that life outside work impacts work and showing empathy for those unavoidable constraints.
Right. It argues for a degree of workplace empathy and flexibility when the cause is systemic or outside the employee's immediate control.
Okay, but what about the other side? What if it's not unavoidable? What if someone's just, hitting snooze too many times?
This is where they adopt a more pragmatic, almost impartial view of the current reality. They acknowledge that if the tardiness is simply due to things like waking up late, then unfortunately in this corporate capitalistic world, their words where time is money, it logically follows that companies will reprimand. They even say it makes sense for companies to do so, though they immediately soften it by adding, not too much.
So it's not necessarily an endorsement of harsh corporate policy, but more a realistic assessment of this is how the system currently operates.
I think that's exactly it. It demonstrates a balanced strategic mindset They hold a personal value for respecting time, but they also possess a clear-eyed understanding of the economic logic that often governs professional environments, especially the high-stakes startup world they're aiming for.
It's about knowing the rules of the game you're choosing to play, even if you might wish the rules were different sometimes.
Precisely. It's a necessary perspective for anyone navigating a high-performance career path. You need both your personal ethics and an understanding of the prevailing professional norms. #OutUTRO.
So as we bring this deep dive together, what we've really seen is a detailed blueprint, wouldn't you say? A blueprint of a modern, ambitious learner who approaches their life almost like an integrated system to be tuned and optimized.
Yeah, system feels like the right word. It's very intentional. Very intentional. This is someone who proactively manages their energy budget. They use tools that are both physiologically targeted, like the sauna and cold plunge, specifically to mitigate anxiety, strategically avoiding caffeine due to sensitivity,
Rate the decaf choice.
and also culturally familiar and comforting, like the specific teas used for specific results, chamomile for sleep, green tea for that detox feeling. It's a blend.
And they've really customized their information intake, too, moving away from maybe what they felt they should read, like dense literary works,
Rejecting that cognitive load.
towards knowledge that serves a direct purpose. Either it's immediately applicable, like the self-help books on habits, or it's highly engaging and maybe even fun, like the VR learning experience.
And crucially, adapting how they learn to fit the modern world. Embracing that micro-chunking for studying, using small rewards, acknowledging the reality of today's attention spans rather than fighting against it.
It seems like the core of it all, the thread running through everything, is this high degree of self-awareness.
Absolutely. That's the foundation upon which this whole strategic life design rests. They know their physical limits, like the caffeine sensitivity. They recognize the subtle but important difference between active, restorative rest and passive, momentum-killing laziness.
Yeah, that lazy enough but not too lazy concept.
Exactly. And maybe most critically, they understand that high performance isn't achieved in isolation. They know when the pressure is too high, like during that chaotic move, and they understand the strategic necessity of delegating that stress, leaning on their village, their friends, to ensure the overall mission gets completed.
So success isn't just about individual grit. It's also about knowing when and how to leverage your support network.
Without a doubt. The most successful learners, the most resilient high achievers, they know their internal landscapes, their limits, their needs, just as well as they know their external goals and the demands of the environment.
You know, we talked about how this person seems to need more of that active, restorative weekend time when their week has been filled with draining tasks, things they felt forced to do. It suggests this ongoing, almost real-time calculation of their internal energy balance.
And the constant monitoring.
And this brings us to a final, maybe provocative thought for you, the learner listening to this. How much of your current schedule, your typical week, is genuinely dedicated to activities that drain your energy versus activities that truly replenish it?
That's a searching question.
It is. And if you do that quick audit and see a serious deficit, if the drain significantly outweighs the replenishment, how might you start to adjust your own definition of productive time? Could productive time include intentionally scheduling those replenishing moments, whether it's exercise, social connection, creative pursuits, or even strategic rest, rather than defining productivity only as the hours spent actively working or studying?
Shifting the definition itself.
Exactly. Something powerful to perhaps mull over as you think about organizing your own high-performance life, managing your own energy, and consciously building or leaning on your own strategic village.